Next, we'll need a lemon. The recipe have any fresh sweet cherries, they canner. These will go, and they're going to process for 10. Well, hey there, howdy, and how are you doing today? So glad you could be here with me as I work on a project in the downstairs kitchen. Today's video is going to span over about a month worth of work, but it's only going to take a little bit of time here and there until we get to our end product. We're going to make and can vinegars today as part of the Canuary Collaboration. Thanks, Lisa, for inviting me back again this year to participate in this fantastic collaboration. So January is a month where typically we're inside doing inside projects, and what a perfect time to get to canning for all those things we didn't get to when our harvest came in. I'm going to be using recipes, not one, not two, but 3 recipes out of this new Ball cookbook. Thank you, friend, who gifted me this. I am so excited. We're going to make a half batch each of the sweet cherry vinegar, the blueberry basil vinegar, and the recipe is for a lemon mint vinegar, but we're going to do an orange mint because you can swap citrus with canning. So I'm super excited to alter it a little bit and give you inspiration. You know, my mama told me if you don't learn something new every day, then you didn't do something right. So I hope that today's video will inspire all of you to do something new, or maybe I'll teach you a new technique of something you didn't already know. No more talking, let's get to working. I think we'll start first with the blueberry basil. I'm going to half it, so if you're going to use the recipe out of the book, please grab yourself a half-gallon mason jar, or you can just use a glass bowl. I'm just going to use a quart-sized jar. I chose the wide mouth because I think that'll give me plenty of room to muddle and do all the things that we're going to need to do. So first things first, we need to rinse all of our produce that we're going to be using today. I already did that behind the scenes. No need to bore you with all that. So right into our jar, we're going to have our 2 cups of fresh, organic, if you choose, blueberries. And I'm going to put them all right down in there. I'm going to use just a half of a cup of, this is the white wine vinegar. You can use any of the vinegars as long as it has a 5% acidity, but I actually ordered this online from Amazon, and I'll do my best to remember to put a link there for you so that you can find it really easy. I'm excited. I've never worked with white wine vinegar in bulk like this before. I've always just bought little bottles for cooking, and we need 1 cup. Okay, so actually it's only, if I do it by half, it says I only need a half of a cup. So we will kind of guess this out because we're going to finish it out a little bit. So instead of me taking a potato masher like they suggest, because we have it in the jar, I'm going to go ahead and just muddle it with a wooden spoon, because all you're wanting to do is mash it. And you can see that I'm getting the natural juices out of the blueberries and kind of crushing them up a little bit. And, you know, push against the side here. Just make sure that you're popping them all open. That's all you need to do. Next, we'll need a lemon. The recipe calls for 1, so we're only going to use half of 1 today. So what I need to do is take a vegetable peeler, and we're going to peel off just the yellow bits. Okay, we want to leave the white pithy part behind, and we're going to take them and we'll put these pieces as we peel them off. Looky there, I got it all in one piece, so I might go ahead and break this one up just a little bit. Remember, we only need half of our lemon. It's really easy to get too deep. See how I did that? I didn't get hardly any of the white. That's what you want. If you dig too deep with it, then you'll end up taking that white with you. And the white pithy part, that's the bitter part. We don't want that. After all, isn't vinegar bitter enough as it is? And that goes. Now we need to add the rest of our vinegar for a total of 2 cups. So here's the other half a cup, and then we need 1 more cup for making a total of 2 cups of our vinegar. Perfect. Cannot have blueberry basil vinegar without the basil, right? You're probably wondering, why didn't you do that? Because I forgot. I had it set over here, and that's why it's so good to have your recipe book beside you. I love using technology, but for me, a solid book to look at and reference is so much better. Because I looked over to my side and I saw my purple basil and thought, wait a minute, that doesn't go in the next recipe. Nope, it goes in the first. So what I need to do is I need to measure out this basil. If you have fresh, it's always best. But this is freeze-dried basil, and we're going to use the purple basil because the blueberries are already going to give this color anyway. So I thought it would be neat to go ahead and use that. The recipe calls for 1 cup, so we're just going to use a half a cup. And usually when you use dried things, you would do equal, or you would use less of the dried than you would of the fresh. However, because when you freeze dry, a lot of times you can use equal parts. I was able to keep these leaves intact, as you can see. So we can put a full half cup in there. Because remember, we're having this. And put this aside. Oh, that basil, it smells lovely. Let me tell you. So get our little muddler, mix all this up. And now our blueberry basil vinegar is ready to sit and wait. Take some waxed paper or cling wrap or something like that and put over the top of the jar. I'm actually just going to use a canning lid and put it in a dark place, maybe back in a cabinet somewhere where it's nice and cool and dark. And then we'll check on it every 2 to 3 days, give it a taste. And somewhere between that 1 and 4 week mark, when we feel like it's ready, that's when we'll come back and we'll process this together. I can't wait to see how this goes. Now we'll work on our sweet cherry. I don't have any fresh sweet cherries. They do not grow in my area, and even if they did, it's not the time of year. So I have some canned sweet cherries that we're going to use today. When you strain off your liquids from your cherries, if you happen to use canned ones like I did, don't waste that. That has a lot of good stuff in it. You could add that to a little 7-Up and make yourself a nice refreshment. Or maybe you would like to make an adult beverage with it. You could add it to all sorts of recipes. Maybe put it in some bread dough instead of using water. You can get super creative, waste nothing. If you were like me and you left the stems on these, because I had planned on actually making some candies with them, and you leave the stem on for that, make sure to go ahead and take those stems off, and we're going to add those into our jar. Of course, my hands are good and clean. What cook goes into her kitchen and does not wash her hands? Not this one. I promise you that. So all my counters, all my utensils, everything I'm using today has been thoroughly cleaned. Now, once again, we're just going to muddle our fruit. Because this has already been canned, the fruit is a little soft already, so we don't need to add any liquid to it at this point. We can go ahead and get it to squish and mash down without it. I'm going to use the other half of this lemon. Putting our peels in here. Set this aside. We can use this in other recipes for cooking later on this week. Just make sure you wrap it really well so it doesn't dry out. Go ahead and muddle this really quick one more time to just bring out those aromatics of the lemons. And then to this, we're going to add 2 cups of our white wine vinegar. And lastly, we're going to do our not lemon, but orange mint vinegar. This one's slightly different. It's going to have sugar added to it, and so we need to get it onto the stove top. We need 2 cups of white wine vinegar. Again, this is a half batch. To that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of just regular sugar. We're going to put this on the stove top and we're going to let it warm up and get those sugar crystals to kind of melt. While that does that, we're going to work on the next part. Get our last jar. So the recipe calls for 2 lemons. I convert that to 1 large orange. We need that in half, so 1 small orange. Peel the orange, leaving the white pith behind. Doesn't matter what size of peel you really get. You could even go through and zest it if you want. It's just going to make it a little harder later when you go to strain it out. This, in a little bit, is going to become my afternoon snack. We need 1 cup, because we're having again, of our mint. This was mint that I grew in my garden for the very first time. I've never grown mint before. I've always been told that it kind of takes over. It does. I'm so glad I grew it in a horse tank because wow, that was crazy. So there's probably 1/2 cup. And again, it's freeze dried, so we'll use equal measurements that you would for any fresh recipe. Dehydrated, you would probably use about half. Our sugar is starting to dissolve, but we're not quite there yet. We don't have to get the sugar water super hot. We're just wanting to make sure that those sugar granules get good and dissolved. Okay, that's it. It didn't even take maybe a minute. And I can see that the sugar is completely dissolved. So in goes vinegar and our sugar. So we will just let those mint leaves steep. Once this is good and cool, then I will put a label on this. And that's it, friends. It only took a few minutes, and step 1 of this process is done. See you in a little bit on your time, probably a few days to weeks, my time. Behind the scenes here, nearly 3 weeks has passed. I am ready to jar up our infused vinegars. I'm really excited to get to do this with you today. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit more about the Canuary Collaboration. Our host Lisa has been doing this for several years now, and every year she always gives away a canner. This year she's giving away not 1, but 2 canners, a Presto pressure canner that you could use like in my previous video, or a steam canner that is similar to the one that you're going to see me use in today's video. But on top of that, 4 Jars is sponsoring this collaboration also, along with Sutton's Days, and they are going to be giving away a canner and all sorts of great packages with canning supplies. I am so excited about this giveaway. I hope that you guys have been watching all the videos. If you don't know where to find the playlist, go over to our host Lisa Sutton's channel, where you can see all the previous videos that have been posted and get caught up on that. There's still more to come all the way through till the end of the month. And then on the 31st, there will be a live where Lisa will give away all these great items. So make sure you mark your calendars and you don't miss out on them. We're going to start out by filtering out our fruits and herbs and things from our vinegars. The first one I have here is my cherry. Of course, I've got clean hands. And what I was doing is, so every few days or whatever, when I'd go by, I had this hidden behind a bunch of picture frames and things somewhere nice and dark, and I would just turn it. I might open it up, give it a sniff and taste once a week, and we have reached, I believe, the perfect phase. But you can do this for, it says, up to 4 weeks. And I tell you, it smells almost like a ferment to me. So with that fruit, that can happen. And that is one of the reasons why we actually need to go ahead and bring our vinegar up to a boil before we can it. Vinegar will kill many microbes, but it doesn't kill them all. And if we just take the time to go ahead and heat it up to a boil before we can it, we know we've taken care of any of those nasty things that we don't want in our jar. And then by sealing it with a 10-minute water bath time, then we know nothing will get in that might try to. And I'm just taking my lid, the same lid we were using with to hold our vinegar. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that I'm pressing out any of the liquids that I may have missed. I would suggest, if you do not have a super fine mesh like I do, to go ahead and get some cheesecloth and maybe double it up, and then you can take it and you can squeeze it out that way. Whichever works for you is fine. What you're wanting to do is just make sure you have your infused vinegar and none of the fruit. So now that I know that I've gotten everything filtered out, we've got a nice clear product. I'm going to pour this into a saucepan, and I'm going to get this over on the stove top, and I'm going to turn it up to a pretty good heat so that I can get a nice boil so that we can jar it up. Real quick, I'm just going to wash this and my fine mesh strainer so I can get the next batch started. So grab whichever jar you want. I'm getting the fruit ones out of the way. Can't wait. The last time I tested this one, it smelled amazing. Oh, it still does. It kind of smells to me a little like some of the kombuchas that I have made in the past. So I do believe that the longer you leave it, the more of a ferment it will get. This one, because of all the fruit, is going to take just a little bit to strain. So we'll set this aside and I'll meet you over at the stove. Before I ever started filming, while I was gathering everything up, I did grab some jelly jars, a few extras just in case, put them in the steam canner to get them nice and warm, because you want warm jars with warm product. You can see we have just started to come to a boil. So I need to start getting our jars ready. What I'll do is I've got my steam canner back here with our jars, and I should be getting 2 of the half pints, because if I would have made a full batch, I would get 2 of the pints. My plan is the ones that are in the quilted jars, those will be my cherry ones, and that will be an easy way for me to remember what I did. I'm going to shut this heat off, and I'm going to bring it over here so I don't burn that while we're talking. But you can label your lids, but I already put them into my warm water for the seals to start to, soften and do their thing. So it's too late to write on them now. So my idea was the quilted jars will be for the cherries, and then I will have for my blueberry, because it's also a dark color, I'll have it in a different style jar. And that way I'll remember, okay, which is which. Now all we have to do is fill them up to the 1/4 inch headspace. I do have a tool that I use can tell me if I have the proper headspace. And you know what? That was more of a 1/2 inch than a 1/4 inch. So let's try again. Much better. Now we may have more than the 2 half pints, and I'm okay with that. That's why you always have extra jars. It's going to be really close. I know this kind of sounds silly, but I do want to go ahead and put some vinegar on a paper towel here, and I'm going to wipe those rims and treat them just as I would any other canning project. That seems odd because that's vinegar in the jar, right? But it also has the cherry, and I just want to make sure. I really think that step's probably not necessary. So I've got this special little magic wand that has a magnet on it that I use to get out of the warm water. I got one of those kits. I don't know. I'll see if maybe Amazon has one that I can share with you and show you. I've had mine a very long time. And all we want to do is fingertip tight. So with one hand, that's it. You may notice that I have a different color jar ring and lid. That is because today I do not have any of the narrow mouth 4-jar lids, but I have some other lids that came with the jars that I'm using today. But if you are in need of more lids like I am, I would suggest going over to 4 jars and checking that out. If you use Farm Wife 10, you can save 10% off your order. Next, I'll put these sweet cherry vinegars in with our steam canner, and they're just going to kind of hang out until the others are ready. Let's go check on those blueberries over here that are straining. With a quick wash of the pan, I am back. I wanted to show you just how little bit was left. Not much at all. This would be perfect for me to just put in the refrigerator and use at another time. Now these blueberries have been sitting here a bit while we were cooking our other. I'm going to just take this, put it over in the sink for now. I'm running that stuff down my garbage disposal because as vinegar is a cleaner, as we know, I can kind of disinfect and clean out my sink at the same time. Into the pot it goes and over to the stove to boil. So while our blueberry basil vinegar comes to a boil, we get to strain out our very last, our orange mint vinegar. Oh man, you can really smell the mint. I was so excited to get to grow mint for the first time this year. And here we go. All we have to do is strain it out. I wasn't quite sure what the color might be. Well, it's an orangey green color. In the book, it does suggest that you can put a peel of, they used lemon, we're using orange today, of the rind and a sprig of the mint. I'm opting out to do that. It has nothing to do with keeping it preserved, whether you do or don't put that in there. I just want a clear vinegar. I don't want to have to strain that out later. So that's why I'm doing it that way. And just like that, our second vinegar is already starting to bubble. So now it's time for me to get the jars out of the steam canner. This time we're using the ones with the fruit on the label. It's boiling good, so that's got to come off. Shut that off just for a second. I went ahead and I grabbed, I grabbed 3 of the jars in case there's a little bit left. Again, a 1/4 of an inch headspace. Give this a quick wash. I'm going to go ahead and pour in our 3rd vinegar. Get that to heating up while we go ahead and put these lids on these vinegars into our steam canner. Here is what the blueberry basil looks like. It smells divine. Our last vinegar is boiling and we're ready to jar it up and process. We will sneak into the steam canner. These are just random jars because we're going to easily be able to tell from the color difference which vinegar we have. Leaving the stovetop on, I'm going to move over our steam canner so that we can have it, I like to process at the front of the stovetop. I'll put the lid on real quick while we go ahead and jar these up. Now into the canner these will go, and they're going to process for 10 minutes after you reach the green. My steam canner from my area, I need to be in the green zone. Our timer has gone off, so now I'm just going to shut off my stove and I'm going to tilt my canner, and that's it. We're going to let it set for 5 minutes. We're going to kind of let the surrounding air peek up underneath here, let some of this hot steam out so that the jars don't go into shock when we bring them out to put them on the counter to cool. So now it is time to take off the lid, and we're going to gently, carefully take it away from your face, because as much as we all like a facial, we don't need a face peel today. I'm going to move my lid over. Whatever you do, you just do not want to put it on top of the stove where it has been hot. And now our vinegar is ready. See, our first was our cherry. Isn't that just beautiful? It's gorgeous. No, see, look, I see the quilted. This is the cherry. Wow, I really messed that up already. Good thing I have this recorded so I can go back and mark down which one's which. And then to me, this just looks like summer. It kind of reminds me of dandelion. I don't know. In 12 hours time, I'll want to come back down here. I'm going to give them all a tippy tap, make sure they sealed. And if they didn't, then I'm going to want to go ahead and get them used up within 6 months time. If the ones that did seal, I'll wash them off with hot soapy water and store them in my pantry without the rings on. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you for Lisa for inviting me to be part of Canuary 2025. I had a blast. I hope that all of you did too. Bye for now, friends. We'll see you next time.